Welcome back to my channel. I'm Joe with Smokin Joe's Pit Barbecue. On today's video, I'm going to take the cheapest brisket that money can buy, which is a select brisket, and I'm going to be injecting it with Wagyu beef tallow to see if we end up with a good, juicy brisket. Stay tuned. All right, let's get started on this select brisket. I'm just gonna take it out of the package, and you're gonna be surprised on how little marbling you're gonna have on a select brisket. Now, it's been years, literally years, probably 15, 20 years since I purchased a select brisket to smoke it. All right, so here's our select brisket out of the package, and it doesn't look too bad. Sometimes when you get these, they're all ripped apart, and this is actually a pretty good looking select brisket. Now, I do want to mention that there have been a couple of people that have tried injecting Wagyu beef fat into what they claim is the cheapest brisket that money can buy, but select is by far the least expensive. It's got very little marbling, if any. In fact, there's a really nice gash right here, but I can work around that. So when it comes to brisket grades, you're gonna have your prime, your choice, and then your select. And sometimes the choice briskets have better marbling than a lot of the primes. I'm not sure if you guys have ever seen that, but that happens to me a lot. These select briskets have very little marbling. You'll see that as I start to trim some of this fat and silver skin off that surface. All right, I'm just going to trim up this real thin piece right here and start to round it off. All right, so let's take a look at our fat cap. Yeah, just got to do a little bit of trimming back here. All right, so I'm going to dig out some of this fat right here in this little pocket on the side. That's also going to help our brisket lay a little bit flatter once I put in my smoker. All right, so that looks good right there. So the next step is to inject our brisket with some of the Wagyu beef tallow. Now, the Wagyu beef tallow, when you purchase it, it does come in a container like this, okay? And all I did was melt some down, and it has been sitting on my counter for about 40 minutes. So it's at a room temperature, and I think that melting it is gonna allow the fat to really distribute inside this brisket. Now, the consistency when it's not melted down is almost like a mayonnaise consistency, really soft, okay? So I'm just gonna get my pistol grip injector and suck up some of this Wagyu beef tallow. So as I start to inject the Wagyu beef tallow, it will start to solidify, but it being a liquid will distribute a little bit more evenly than if the Wagyu beef tallow was more of a solid state. Whoa. So as I start to inject the brisket closer to the middle, it's going to start to really get nice and puffy, and that's what you want. All right, so I've got the brisket injected with the Wagyu beef tallow, so I'm just going to be using this as a binder on the outside surface. Now, we've got quite a bit, and that's okay. Just want to spread some of this to that fat cap as well. All right, so the seasoning that I'm using for this brisket is my homemade SPG, which is salt, pepper, garlic, and paprika. Just gonna add a really good layer. Now, my rub is heavy on the pepper. If you want the recipe, make sure you guys check out the description box. I will leave it there. This is a really good rub for brisket, ribs, chicken, you name it. All right, now let's season our flat. So this brisket is going to be resting in my fridge overnight. I'm going to pop this inside my Yoda Frontiersman tomorrow morning. We'll see you guys then. All right, so it's the very next morning and I've got my smoker running at 250 degrees. I am going to be using some post oak today. Just going to slide the shelf out. And here's our select brisket. Going to put it right in the middle of the shelf. All right, just going to slide the shelf back in. We will not be checking on this brisket, not even opening the door, spritzing, nothing for at least 3.5 hours. I'll bring you guys back at that point. All right, so the total cook time is 3.5 hours. Let's take a look at our brisket. Oh man, that is looking really nice. And surprisingly, that surface is nice and moist. Hopefully you guys can see that on the camera. Let me zoom you guys in just a little bit more. There we go. So that bark is definitely set. Again, 3.5 hours at 250 degrees. So I'm gonna go ahead and spritz with apple cider vinegar and water, mixed at 50-50. So we got a really nice color going on this brisket. I'm gonna let it smoke for another 1.5 hours, let more of that bark develop on it, then we'll come outside and wrap it. Stay tuned. All right, so the total cook time has been 6 hours at 250 degrees. Let's get an internal temperature. So the point is at 160 degrees. Let's check that flat. And it's still really tough. 160 as well, we're gonna call that. So we're right at 160 degrees. Just gonna lift the brisket off of this tray and put it on our paper. All right, so I am wrapping with butcher paper. I do have a little bit of beef tallow that I melted here. Just gonna put some on the paper and also some on the brisket. Just like that. So here's how I wrap. Just fold it over. Fold this corner over. And this corner as well. You just flatten out your butcher paper on both sides. Now remember that our fat cap is down and I want to end up with the fat cap down, okay? Pack it in there really nice and tight so our fat cap is up. Our fat cap is down again. And this excess butcher paper, just tuck it in under your brisket. So I'm just gonna fold it. Just like that. I'm gonna fold it just one more time and then tuck this excess paper on the bottom of the fat cap. All right, just like that, our brisket is nice and wrapped up. So I'm gonna pop this back inside my smoker. Now I'm not looking for a specific temperature, but I am looking for tenderness. I'll let you guys know how long that takes. Stay tuned. All right, so the brisket has been on for 10 hours, exactly 10 hours. And look at that butcher paper, it is nice and drenched. Let's slide the brisket out a little bit and get an internal temperature. We'll start right here with the flat. All right, 203 degrees, that feels really tender. All right, so let's check the point. Ooh, that's tender. That is really tender. We're probing at 203.5 degrees. Really nice and tender. Again, I'm not worried about the temperature, it's more the tenderness. So I'm gonna go ahead and pull the brisket out, let it rest for about 15 minutes on my counter. Then I'm gonna pop it in my Canberra where it's gonna rest for 2 hours. All right, so the brisket has been resting for 2 hours. And just a reminder that we smoked it for 10 hours. Let's see how we did. All right, so let's see how we did on our brisket. Let's just take it out of the package here. Number one, this butcher paper is really drenched. which was expected. Again, we use that beef tallow. Oh man, it's really nice and juicy. A lot of juices in here. Look at this. It is extremely juicy. This might be a game changer, boys. Ooh, man, look at this. All right, check this bad boy out. Just gonna move it over to my cutting board. So the aroma that's coming off of this brisket is really beefy, number one. So as far as the bark, it's not too bad, but one thing that I'll do different next time is not use so much of the beef tallow as a binder. Maybe take some of it off. All right, so this brisket is extremely tender. Let's see how we did on our point. Look at that. It is just dripping with juices. Hopefully you guys can catch that on the camera, but it is dripping a ton of juice. Okay, let's check the hang test on the slice. Look at that. Oh boy, this is really nice and tender, really nice and juicy as well. So check out this cutting board. I mean, it's got juices all over the place. Like my buddy Rye with Cooking with Rye says, we got a juice-a-lanch on this cutting board. All right, so I'm just gonna take a couple of slices off our point, my favorite part of the brisket. Look at how tender this brisket is. Man, this is hard to believe. So I don't know if you guys smoke select briskets or not, but this bad boy is juicy. Let's give it a taste. All right, let's give the flat a try first. Here we go. I'm sorry that I'm talking with my mouth full, but no freaking way is this good. Wow. All right, so right out of the gate, it is hard to believe that this is a select brisket. It is so full of flavor. Now let's give this point a try. Guys and gals, I'm telling you, this is a delicious brisket. Wow. That's good, mama. Wow. All right, so what's my final verdict on this brisket? It is absolutely delicious. I am giving this a 10 out of 10. For a select brisket, you could have fooled me and told me this was a prime or maybe even a Wagyu brisket. All right, so as I mentioned earlier, the only thing that I would do different on this cook is take off some of that tallow right before you lay your rub down. I think that's gonna really get that rub to stick. I would highly recommend you guys give this a shot. Check out the links below, grab yourself some of this Wagyu beef tallow and get a discount as well. I'm telling you, if you don't think this is real, I highly recommend you guys give this a shot. If this is your first time here, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button. And if you like this video, give me a thumbs up. If you have any questions, ask them down below. Until next time, Joe with Smokin Joe's Pit Barbecue. See ya.